Hello and welcome to Stereotypical, a podcast about music and the people who make it, brought to you by the OX Collective. Now this episode is all about creativity, because it's all fun and games to sit and chinwag about music, but now it's time to go in deep on what it's like to be a creative person and how it has shaped us as individuals. Before we start, I'd once again like to say a massive thank you to Allo Sound for hosting us and sponsoring this episode. If you're a musician looking for a great recording or an affordable rehearsal space, I'd highly recommend checking them out. Okay, let's get into it.
So in this episode, you said we was going to talk about creativity and get a bit more personal.
Yep.
Which is kind of relevant because I've recently been watching videos on like music breakdowns and song stories.
As always.
Yeah. And that got me thinking like how we work as individuals.
Yeah.
And on like our project together.
Yeah.
So the first question is if you can remember the moment that you was first attracted to being creative with music.
Yeah, I think there was a distinct moment. I think there was a period of time where I was a musician before I was like a creative person, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like I started learning guitar really young. I was like 7. And then maybe by the time I got to 10, I was probably a bit bored of it because you're a 10-year-old, you know what I mean? Got no attention span.
Yeah.
But then I remember I wrote a song and that was like that a light bulb came on.
When you was 10?
When I was 10, which is crazy really to think about because it's like so young. But I wrote a song and it was like dreadful, but I was so excited. I couldn't even tell you what it was that attracted me to it or like what sparked that change, but it just like was something inside. And I get it now, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like we work on stuff together.
Yep.
You've seen times where you've been sat at the computer working on something. And like, for example, we've got a song called If Anybody Loves Me. When you were making that bass line,
Yep.
right, that like, I got that feeling, you know what I mean? Of like, it's just a pure excitement of creativity. And I don't know why it is.
Yeah.
But it's like, it's why I do it, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's amazing to me.
Yeah. I've noticed like when we work together, you're pretty much your own hype man.
Yeah.
You're not shy to think something's good.
Yeah. Well, and the weird thing is, like, I've experienced a few people who also have this, like, when I'm working on stuff with strangers.
Yeah.
Sean and Jamie also have that, like, like, one time I showed Sean a demo and he was so excited he fell off his chair. And I, like, love that. I like Jamie, like, slaps you on the back or something.
Yeah.
And even, like doing stuff with Tim, like, Tim gets it. But it's weird that I've never seen you get like dead excited about something that you've made.
Yeah.
Because obviously like you make a lot of stuff and we've made quite a lot of stuff together over years. But like, I don't know. Why do you think that is?
Don't know. I'd probably just say I'm a bit more conscious about stuff.
Yeah.
Like, we've had the conversation before, like when we are being creative with music, you always say you can see the final product and you know the direction it's going in.
Yeah.
Where I'd say I'm pretty much the opposite. Like I like the initial idea, but I don't know where it's going to end up.
Yeah. I don't know, for me, it's just once I get like that initial excitement, I'm in like the flow state then.
Yeah.
Like when people talk about that sort of, like they call it flow or like, there's like a Chinese thing called Wu Wei, which is like the same thing of like when you're not thinking about anything. It happens to creative people. It happens to like F1 drivers when they're not thinking about all these external things.
Yeah.
It's just happening. So like when I get that first burst of like excitement and creativity, it's like, okay, I'm in and I don't have to think about what's happening around me. I just know where things are going, you know what I mean?
And you sort of ride it.
Yeah. And that's what like, it goes back to what you were saying about like knowing where something, I want it to end, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whereas I think, and even sometimes for me, it's like a splurge.
Yeah.
When I'm writing music, whereas you're thinking, how do we make this good now? Whereas I'm thinking, get it all out and then make it good later.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Which I suppose is just like, it's just two different ways to think of it. There's no real right way to do it.
Yeah.
It's just two different perspectives.
Yeah, because I feel like, especially when we're talking about like production and arrangement wise, I feel like we both do the mix as you go sort of method, but I'd say I'm a bit more in depth with it.
Yeah.
Whereas you like to go back and you'd get rid of something completely and just do it again.
Yeah. Because to me, it's sort of like freeform. Once it's out, the idea's on the table. You can move it any which way later. But the burst of creativity, at least in my experience, doesn't always last. Like the amount of times where I've had to stop doing what I'm doing and like run to the studio or pick a guitar up and think, oh, like I've got something. Because if I don't get it down now, I'll lose it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I think it's like a unique thing for us to be like asking each other questions about music and creativity, having that unique perspective of us like working together.
Yeah.
And obviously music can be seen as like quite a personal thing, especially like making any art is like quite a personal thing.
Yeah.
So what would you say the difference is between making stuff alone versus like making stuff collaboratively with other people?
So I'd say if you're making something by yourself, it is like you said, it's you kind of splurging yourself onto it, and it can be very intimate. And for some people, like I'd say me included, I'm not like a very like emotional person like day to day. But when it comes to being creative with,
Really?
if you didn't know, but when it comes to music, I feel like it's a release.
Yeah.
And I'd say like it's intimidating when it's by yourself, because you feel your inner emotions coming out.
Yeah.
And you can get connected to it very easily. Whereas when you work with someone else, you can kind of, I feel like it can go two ways. You can either bounce off each other,
and
you can kind of both improve each other's ideas, and like it just gets very joyful and exciting, or you can kind of clash.
Yeah.
But you'll never know unless you try doing it. But I'd say that's strange for us because we've been through both.
Yeah.
Like I'd say we started off where we'd clash a bit, and you'd want to do this particular thing and go in one direction, and I'd be like, no, we need to, it's not good, or we need to stick to this. But now, we're in the zone where you do something good, I'm like, that's good, we'll keep that and we'll take it further.
Yeah.
And then, like you said before, with the bass line, and If Anybody Loves Me, you was like, that's good, keep it going.
Yeah. And I don't really think we've mentioned it before either. Like me and Jack work on sort of a collaborative music project sometimes called Stockholm.
Yep.
And I think the advantage is like having known each other for a while, it's sort of the more we work on stuff, the more we get that like trust, I would say. I'd say like in the earlier days there was probably more like clashing.
Yeah.
And there still is sometimes, because that's like part of what creativity is, you know what I mean? Like one person's going to have what their idea and another person's going to have their idea, and it's not always going to align. But I would say because we've worked together over a period of time, we have like a trust and like a creative freedom to just know that each other's ideas are going to be all right, you know what I mean?
Yeah. And I think, like you said, it does come with time, because like if you're someone who's just getting into music, it can be very stressful to think you're not that great at it. But and that will stop you trying to work with other people, because you don't want to let your guard down and let them see that, oh, you might not be the best at something. But, you know, it does help develop. So I'd encourage anyone who's getting into music to, you know, surround yourself. They're saying this, surround yourself with people more talented than you.
Yeah.
So you can just learn and improve.
Yeah.
So as we're talking about collaborating, I want to know how it felt like to show people your work, like the first time. Like say you've written a song.
Yeah.
Like you said, you started writing when you was 10, you was dead excited. Obviously, it's gotten more, I'd say, professional as we get older.
Yeah.
And how it feels letting somebody else see your piece of work for the first time.
Yeah, I suppose it's different when you're 10 because people think it's cute. people are like, oh, he's written a song. It doesn't have to be a good song. Like, oh, he's a 10-year-old and he's written a song. Isn't that nice?
Yeah.
Or it's like when you're 22 and you bring someone something that's shit, they're like, oh, fucking Christ. I mean, I guess I'm of the unique perspective of I always work with someone else now. Like, I very rarely complete an idea by myself. So, like, whether it be doing stuff with you or doing the Strangers stuff, I'll usually have an idea. And then, so take Strangers, for example, the way we work is I will demo something and then take it to the boys and then we'll work on it together.
Yeah.
So there's usually an understanding on their part that whatever I'm showing them isn't finished. You know what I mean? And it can be a bit heartbreaking sometimes if you make a demo that you're like, this is it, this is the one, this is the song, and then you take it to the boys and they're just like, oh yeah, maybe. I remember like one time when we were in college, I think it was when I first got like a home studio, the first thing I made, I was like adamant that it was amazing. And I brought it in and I sat you all in the studio, I don't know if you remember this, and I played you this song and it was like a 5-minute instrumental that just had the same chords going round and round. And I thought it was great. And as it was playing, I was just like, oh no, this is not what I thought it was. And you all just were like, yeah. And I remember you being like the sort of honest, say it as it is guy that you are, was just like, this isn't it, bro.
Yeah. I feel like you do need to have them people.
Yeah, oh, definitely.
To just say it as it is.
Well, 100%, because like I put my faith in people like the Strangers Boys because I don't know what's good. So it goes through 2 other people before it hits public. You know what I mean? And it can be a bit disheartening in terms of like when you first put a song out and people hear it in a public sense. And like, I don't know, I think these days it doesn't necessarily bother me if people don't like it.
Yeah.
It more bothers me if people don't care. You know what I mean? I'd rather provoke hatred than ambivalence. But it's still quite like, it's quite nerve-wracking, but it's also quite exciting because like if people like something that you've made, that's cool. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but would you say that's changed just with age, or would you say it's changed with experience?
I'd say there's always been excitement, and with age has come more, I don't even know what the word is, more doubt, like self-doubt of like, oh, is this going to be any good? You know what I mean? Or are people going to like this? Whereas when I was younger and I was making stuff, and it was almost more pure because I wasn't necessarily going to record it and put it out. If I just wrote a song and then played it to like a family member or something, I was just like pure excitement of, I've made this thing, look at it. You know what I mean?
Like it wasn't sort of chasing the applause. Yeah,
exactly. And it's not necessarily that I chase the applause now, but it's just like you become very aware that other people are going to hear the things that you're...
One thing that stuck with me in our friendship, because I'd say like you started songwriting a lot before me, and you said to me on like the first month that we met each other, that you probably say 1 in 5 songs is one that you'd keep working on.
Yeah.
And that proper hit a nerve with me. Like I feel like before that I would have assumed like if you start something you need to like go for it. And if it's not good, it's not good. And you just have to try again. Where that makes me feel like it's okay if it isn't good.
Yeah. And I would give that advice to everybody. And like, obviously, who am I? I'm just a guy. But I also have a lot of years of creativity under my belt, even though it's not like I'm imbued with any sense of success. Still, I've been making stuff for a long time. And I've been trying to do sort of things in creative industries for quite a while now. And I would say, and it's probably applicable to other art forms as well, but like when you're younger, especially, you think, not even younger, or when you're starting out, you think that everything has to be good. Yeah. It's like, oh, I've wrote this song, but it's rubbish. Yeah. It's like, well, good. It's going to be rubbish. It's the 3rd song that you've ever wrote. Of course it's going to be terrible. You know what I mean? Like, eventually, probably, I'd imagine the number of good to terrible songs will change, and you'll be keeping more than you'll be getting rid of. Yeah. But again, it goes back to that thing of like splurging out ideas. I'd highly recommend just getting stuff out there. Yeah. Anyway, just as practice. Rick Rubin once said that Eminem just has a notebook that he just writes raps in, and even though he knows like 99% of stuff isn't going to get used, it's just like practice. He's just like top level practice for what he does. Yeah. I'd
say the thing that I noticed about that is like last week when we was talking about JP Sachs. Yeah. He says that he just writes things down, like not in lyrical form, and then he'll just go back and see what's good. And Ed Sheeran has also said that his phone's just full of notes. Yeah. And he'll get a tune going, and he'll just go and pick out things that he thinks good.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, I do the same. It's almost like that thing that David Bowie used to do, where he would write down ideas, and then when it came to a song, he'd just like cut them out on a piece of paper and like list them. What I wanted to ask you about is, I think it's unarguable that music has the ability to dictate someone's emotion. Yeah. And obviously, like, you see this through cinema a lot. Yeah. Right? Would you agree with that? And is there any examples musically or even like with its links to film that stick out to you?
Yeah, I think there's a definite link, because like the first thing that comes into my mind is like horror films. Like, I think you said to me before, like if you just mute it, like you wouldn't be scared at all.
Yeah.
Because it is just to do with like the different forms of being creative. Like you can have the visuals, but the music can make it intense.
Yeah.
And as for examples, I'd say a big one for me is like Interstellar and Inception. Like them films that kind of talk about deep meanings, you know, can give someone an existential crisis.
Yeah.
Like I feel like the music sort of goes along with it. And it's one of them films that I would happily go and just listen to the soundtrack, because like you say, it makes me feel that sort of way. But one thing I've noticed recently, because I wouldn't say I'd pay attention to music in film as often I'd just pay attention to music in detail, is I was watching this Netflix movie, and it's called Blended. It's with Adam Sandler.
Right.
So it's going to be 50-50. Marmite, some people are going to hate it, right? But there was this one scene where a woman was coming down a staircase and it was playing a different song for three people's different perspectives.
Yeah.
So it was playing like a love song for her partner, and it was playing a different song for her son who didn't want them to be together.
Yeah.
And that really struck me as something that I'd noticed.
Yeah.
How like it wants you to portray an emotion.
Yeah.
And I'd say it works in itself with music. Like how if we were making music together, we'd kind of know, like chords wise, major and minor, how we'd want someone to feel.
Yeah.
So we have this thing like sad pop,
Right. Yeah.
where like their music will be happy,
Yeah, but the
lyrics are depressing.
Yeah.
So
well, I mean, the thing that strikes me, especially linking into what you were saying with the stuff about the films, is like it completely changes the perspective. You know what I mean? Like like you can have an image, but then what music you put that with can completely alter what the image means.
Yeah.
Like you say, it was as simple as just someone walking down the stairs. And I think music, this is why I like ambient music, so like Brian Eno, Nils Fram, John Hopkins, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like it has the ability to command the way you feel without lyrics. Because it's one thing, right, to talk about like the sad pop stuff and like that lyrical juxtaposition with the poppy music. But with stuff like that, I think there's a level of empathy that comes with it, because you latch on to what the person's saying. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're telling a story. You can understand it through the emotion. You empathise with it, and then you get it, and it makes you feel a certain way. But stuff that is just instrumental, if an instrumental can make you feel like that without the lyrics, that's like really powerful to me, because it's just music at the end of the day, but it can make you cry or it can make you dance, and it, you know, I think that's what it's maybe why I'm so fascinated with it, and why I'm so fascinated with music as a whole.
Yeah, I'd say we have that in common. Like we're both very fascinated in music and how it can be attached to other forms. And I want to know how it felt to like want to be in an industry that some people might not value. Because I can say from like my perspective, when I've spoken to people about going into the music industry and wanting to work within it, some people just kind of shy away from it and don't see it as like a real job or that sort of thing. So I just want to get your opinion on that.
Yeah, well, I mean, when I don't know, I've been always quite lucky because I've sort of grown up doing it with friends. So like a lot of my social circles are built around, you know, the band or like meeting people like you from college. So like there's a level of support there.
Yeah.
And like I've always had a supportive family and all that stuff. It is weird, especially given the year that we've had. Because I feel like the creative arts have probably gone undervalued. It sort of goes without saying. I spoke to a woman who works at a chamber of commerce. She like deals with like startup businesses and stuff like that. And I was telling her that I was like, you know, a freelance audio engineer, and I was also like doing the music thing on the side. And she was like, yeah, my brother-in-law is a jazz musician, and he makes a living off it, but he doesn't make much money. But some people are just fine with living like that, but I don't understand it. I was like, well, of course you don't understand it because you work in a business thing, you know what I mean? And I think a lot of people's minds are centered that way, and they see the creative arts as almost like a hobby.
Yeah.
Just because we've turned our hobby into a job, you know what I mean, for a lot of people. It was interesting going back and working in theatre recently, doing audio, because obviously the theatre community's been hit by it as well, but it was incredible to see, you know, even though, we do feel undervalued sometimes.
Yeah.
And people don't really understand how what we do works, because, you know, the creative arts is built up of so many free-form industries that operate, like the music industry operates completely different to a manufacturing industry.
Yeah.
It was amazing to go back into a live setting like a theatre and just see, oh, well, actually, some people do get it, you know what I mean? Because you were watching a performance and an immediate reaction from an audience who'd been waiting to come to a theatre for the past 8 months or whatever. So, I mean, it's been... I'd be lying if I said it hasn't been challenging, like growing up like that and being... But I guess, I don't know, just because of my taste in like music and clothes and stuff, in high school I was always on the left field of mainstream anyway, so I've always been like outside the box of what other people are doing. And I think you have a unique perspective on that as well, because you did college and then instead of going to university, you went back to college to do music.
Yeah.
Like, what was people's reaction like around you when you decided to not go to university and instead to pursue music?
Yeah, it was a strange one. It's a strange topic to talk about because I feel like deep down music's always been a major part of my life. And I can't tell you why or what started it. It just always has been there. And I was just thinking this morning, like, if I had to live my life again, but music wasn't that involved, I have no idea what I'd be doing.
Yeah.
But so my initial career, this is what I was thinking about though, right? So like, if you're in school and you ask someone what they want to be when they grow up, and someone says footballer, you think, oh, that's cute.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like they assume that it's just never going to happen, and they can go through like the ranks of being a footballer, but until you play like championship or something where the money's good, they wouldn't say you're successful. And I think it's sort of the same sort of stigma with music.
Yeah.
So if you tell someone you want to be a musician or something to do with being
like a pipe dream, innit?
Yeah. There's no point in doing it because it's not like the real world.
Yeah.
It's not a job. So my first career choice was I wanted to be a fireman.
I can remember you saying that to me.
I think it's a very good career choice. I feel like, you know, I wouldn't be scared of it. And but my perspective was I did music as a GCSE without being like trained on an instrument.
Yeah.
It was just like the joy that made me learn at home and develop my skills that way, like through YouTube and learning that way, like how sounds were made and how I'd do it. So, and I liked the GCSE course and I was very into it. So I did my A-levels after that in philosophy and psychology and very, you know, like book written subjects.
Yeah.
Thinking I'm going to have to, after my A-levels, because I didn't want to go to university and then focus on what career choice I had in mind. But there was just a point where I thought, you know, I really like music and I want to learn more about it. So before I go and spend 10 years of my life training and try and get into the fireman job.
The fire industry.
The fire industry. I like how you knew what I was going to say.
I could see you barreling towards fire industry and then you got there and thought that's not a word.
Yeah. And I thought I'm gonna follow it. And I'm gonna see if I can learn more because that's what I was interested in.
Yeah.
I was never interested in like becoming famous or getting a career in it. I just wanted to learn more about it.
Yeah.
So that's why I went back to college. And I guess people understood it from that point.
Yeah.
When I was like, I still want to commit to the fireman thing. I just want to do this first.
Yeah.
So I can learn more about it. And then that's when I thought, you know, I really enjoyed it. I was doing it quite well. We met each other and started our little side thing. And it was just the learning process that I liked. Like the course was good. I'd say it made me teach myself more than it taught me just because of my own interest.
Yeah.
And then obviously we know the story. We know my story from there.
Yeah.
But I'd say there was no people took it well because they understood the story.
Yeah. It's weird as well, like talking as somebody who's been like so driven to be in music and just the world of creativity in general from like a young age. I remember it took me a long time to get around you being like, I'm pursuing music, but not for a career. I just like doing music.
Yeah.
Like, as another thing. I was always like, because that's how I first found out that you're going to be a fireman. Because when we first met, I was like, so what sort of area of the industry do you want to go into? And you're like, I want to be a fireman. It's like, I think you're in the wrong class, mate. But yeah, no, it's weird. Like, and I would also, I've realised this with age, I would advise people that it's okay to be creative and have a creative hobby.
Yeah.
That it doesn't have to be like monetized. Because,
Yeah.
like, example, my mum makes jewellery, right?
Big up Mandy.
Big up Mandy in the jewellery. But my dad is always like, oh, you should, like, you know, try and sell them. You've made a load of bracelets, they're really nice. You should try and sell them. My mum was like, no, because it's just a nice creative hobby.
Yeah.
It's just something she's interested in, and she does it because she likes it. You know what I mean? You don't always have to make a career out of
making a living out of just being creative.
And it's interesting to hear you talk about like going into it just from an interest point of view.
Yeah.
Do you think that being musically creative gives you advantages in other like areas of the arts? Or have you not really delved into that much?
I'd say it definitely helps, because I think before we started learning about music in depth, it's a big world with a lot of stuff involved. And we've talked about it like knowing a lot of detail about a very niche thing. But I feel like because we do know a lot of stuff about, let's say, like production wise, it helps in other forms of creativity, because you've got like a little peg up on people.
Yeah.
So you can't like switch the same things over to the other form of being creative, but you can sort of understand what it takes to go into it.
Yeah.
So like, I'd say one thing for me is like the personality aspect. Like if someone wants to be a filmmaker or a photographer or be in theatre, you kind of know how each other feels because you're putting yourself out there into something that other people will look at.
Yeah. And I think that sort of talks to like the communal aspect of the arts, and also like the general ability to work with people well. I feel like that's something that's undervalued so much in like, I mean, I guess music kind of gets it, but like no one really talks about it. You know what I mean? Like the thing that I've learned that is applicable to other things that I do is if I'm producing a song, you need a good performance. So you need to know how to get that good performance from that person. And that's the same skill as if I'm directing a music video and I need to get a good performance out of the dancer. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which I think is really interesting. And I don't know, I'd say there's a lot of skills like that are easily transferable.
Yeah.
Like music is such a broad thing that we can take what we do and use like that creative eye to do whatever we want.
I'd also say it pushes me to go and do other things.
Yeah.
Like just saying like in the music industry wise, when we're recording and we're thinking about releasing something, then you've got to think about artwork and you've got to think of like photography that way and promoting like a song, for example. And it gives you the urge to go into something that you might not know how to do.
Yeah.
But you can transfer some skills over.
We're getting towards the end of the podcast now. So it is once again time for Big Up
Drum roll, please.
Jack's Tactical Tracks. Do you want to explain the premise for anyone who didn't see episode 1?
So every episode, I'm going to ask Liam a question that he can put a song to. So like a situation that will make him feel a certain way, or if something reminds me of something.
Mm-hmm.
So this week, we're going to, because it's a deep episode anyway.
You said you were going to go deep anyway.
Yes. I want to know what song you would choose to live your life to. So I want a song that would like describe you.
Right. Bear with me,
Mm-hmm.
right, because it's going to sound depressing. I'm going with the 1975 I Always Want to Die Sometimes, right? Because it's uplifting, but also a little bit depressing. And I feel like that's the two sides of like my vibe.
Okay.
Pretty much summed up quite well. And also like there's a lot of philosophies in the lyrics of that song that I sort of that I've learned from and that I live by. So like it starts by saying, I bet you thought your life would change, but you're sat on a train again. And it's that thing of, we think when we're growing up that certain things are like destinations, like adulthood or happiness or whatever. And really it's not, it's more of just a constant state of flowing, because something that I've learned is really important is after every happy ending, there's the day after the happy ending. So what happens then? You know what I mean? And you can't live your life like expecting to reach a certain thing, because then what? You know what I mean? And that song as a whole sort of sums that up quite a lot for me. There's a great BoJack Horseman quote that says, life's a bitch and then you keep living. And it's just, you know what I mean?
Not a similar premise.
Yeah, and like musically, it's almost that thing of like, it's emotional musically, but it's also uplifting, even though the lyrics are kind of like deep and introspective and sad.
So do you ever think about that song at certain points? So like if you're having like a bad time or you're having a good time, that song will pop into your head and you think...
Yeah. I don't do this anymore because it's kind of toxic, but I used to like to listen to it if I was having a bad time, because, you know, you do that thing of like, oh, you're sad, you want to hear like sad songs or whatever.
When you're feeling coming and you're just going to roll with it, like, right, we're going, boys.
It's like
first class.
Yeah, it's like you cross the event horizon. You're like, we're going to the black hole now.
Yeah.
Let's go. Let's put a tune on.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's just it's a very emotional song for me. When I went to see him live, I cried, and I'm not ashamed to say that. I cried in an arena full of people, grown man. But yeah, I feel like it sums up my philosophies and vibe in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
What about you? What are you thinking?
I'm going for... I've had this song the same for ever since I've listened to it, and it's by 30 Seconds to Mars,
right.
And it's called Closer to the Edge.
Okay.
And I think it was described as anthemic arena pop rock.
Right.
Madness. But I'd say it was the first song that I was ever addicted to.
Yeah.
Like I remember having my computer in my childhood bedroom, and I would just watch it and I'd listen to it and I'd be jamming, and then it'd finish and I'd go, oh, that's good. Again. Yeah. And I'd just keep it going for hours. But why I'd say this relates to me and my life is because some of the lyrics say, I will never regret, I will never forget, I will live my life.
Yeah.
And that's how I would live by. So like, I want to go through life with not having any regrets.
Yeah. Because
another quote from it, which is in my Twitter bio, is never regret anything you do, because in the end it makes you who you are. And I'd take this from myself and I'd say it to other people in situations where they'd tell me how much they hated this. And I'm like, you shouldn't hate it that much, because that situation has made you who you are today and how you feel about things, how you think about things. And I'd say this song's very active in the forefront of my mind when I'm thinking about life. Like if I'm feeling a bit down, I'm like, you know, you're down, but it's going to change how you see tomorrow.
So there's often situations where you feel a type of way and this song comes to mind and reinforces like the positivity that you need to have about a situation.
Yeah, definitely. I'd say it's just a message that, like I said, I would give anyone.
Yeah.
To, you know, if you think something was terrible, like if you've made a mistake, for example, like, you know, now you're not going to make that mistake again. So if you're ever in a similar situation, you're going to know for next time.
Yeah.
So, you know, don't beat yourself up about something if something's gone to shit or you're just having a bit of a hard time.
Yeah.
Because you'll learn from it.
I'd say that's applicable to like so many different walks of life. You know what I mean? You can talk about that like as life as a whole.
Yeah.
Or you can apply it to the stuff that we were talking about like being an artist and a creative and stuff like that. Like it's all just about learning at the end of the day, isn't it, really? And just like moving forwards and stuff.
Yeah, like you don't have to be sorry for everything, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like if something's terrible, you know, you can take it on the chin and be like, oh my God, that was terrible.
Yeah, I would agree.
But you don't have to beat up yourself about everything. You know what I mean? Just let it go and live with it, because in the end it makes who you are.
Yeah, it's a fine art to do that, and it takes time to learn, I think.
Yeah.
But it's definitely like a worthy skill to have.
So everyone go and listen to it. I feel it's very good.
Yeah, okay. I'll be listening to it. I've not heard it, so.
Really?
No, not all the way through. I think I've heard a little bit, but not all the way through.
It's good as well because the music video is very cinematic.
Right.
Because Jared Leto, lead singer,
obviously,
he's an actor as well, has been in massive films.
Yeah.
As like an alias that he'd go by. So every like music video from 30 Seconds to Mars in that era was like a mini movie.
Right. Okay.
So again, with the creative action, it's very good. You
That's
should
amazing.
go and watch it.
And that brings us to the end of this episode of the Stereotypical Music Podcast. I'd like to thank you all for tuning in. Thank you once again to Jack, as always.
No
Big
problem.
love, buddy. We're probably going to have a guest on next episode. Exciting times. But yeah, thanks for watching. You can follow us on Instagram. I'll link it all in the YouTube thing or wherever you're watching or listening to this. And yeah, if you are on YouTube, subscribe for the future episodes. But yeah, thank you very much. Big shout out to Allo Sound, as always. And we'll see you on the next one.